Hello and welcome to the next video on this channel. Last week I wasn't able to upload, but the week before I uploaded a little tutorial, or the entry to a tutorial, where I tried to talk about how to give room to your mix and how to overall clean it up and tidy it a bit to make it ready for the later on mixing and mastering process. I tried to do so by giving you a hint on how to divide your different instruments all out and how to categorize them to get a feeling for which instruments are standing in the foreground and which instruments are more in the background and prone to clogging up your mix and making everything messy. Also, with that knowledge, I tried to show you how to get rid of parts of this by using planned EQing on different instruments, like cutting special frequencies in the highs and lows of certain instruments like the bass line. And this week I want to continue with a bit shorter video where I want to go about the technique of sidechaining, or also volume ducking. I'll try to show you my DAW, this time hopefully without the broken audio and more clear to hear. And yeah, let's get me up started and right into it. Okay, so now let's go about this. As you see right here, I'm using the Traveler as my reference track for this tutorial, because I feel that the Lagoon, which I used in the last tutorial, is a bit oversimplified for the purpose. This track uses several bass lines layered on top of each other, a good amount of kick, percussion and melodies that I can use to showcase how important and also how big of an impact sidechaining can be if done right. So how I did it in this track in particular is using a third-party tool which is called LFO tool. LFO tool already implies it's a tool that is used for automating several effects and just several attributes about your sound, about your instruments, and that's what it is about. But for this case we only use it for automating our volume. Now, looking at the mixer, you will see that I have a LFO tool applied to so-called buses. But why do I have those buses? Now, looking at the playlist, you see that down here there is a set of bass lines and they're layered in 3 layers. A sub-bass, a mid-bass and another mid-bass. Or here, the green things are my kicks. Those are a low kick, a high kick and a mid-range kick. And I just stacked them all together because it allowed me to put the kick on all kind of different frequencies without altering a single sound with over-EQing it. So, now I have a lot of sounds lying around here, and if I want to automate them, of course I could go about automating every single sound. But if I could stick similar sounds together, which I want to automate in the same way anyway, I should do that, and that's what I did with buses. The buses are those black bars right here, and when you look at me going through the different channels, the mid-bass, mid-bass 2, sub, you see that they're all linked to the bass bus. So I can use the bass bus, automate its volume, and I'll have all my bass lines automated. And on the right side you see my effects, and right there is the LFO tool 64-bit, and that is my automation. Opening it up, you see you have a waveform right here. On the right, bottom and left you have some settings. The waveform determines the way that LFO tool will alter the sound. So starting low, going up high. You can change this whatever you like, add special points to it, or dragging everything around, just changing and altering all the shape. On the right hand side of the window, you see that those knobs here can be used to set which attributes of your sound you want automated by LFO tool. For example, the cutoff of the filter that you can set and configure on the left side of the panel, or the volume, which is right now set to 100% because I want to change it to 100% up. You can also move it down to minus 100%. Or the panning of your sound, or whatever. That's what he said here. In the bottom you can set parameters that set the way that the different steps of LFO going through this blend into each other. For example, you see the rate setting right here, it's set to 1/4. So the LFO will kick in on every quarter note, which makes sense because we have a 4 on the floor right here. And so it just is perfectly tailored to a kick, kind of. The other settings are there to set how they kind of transition into each other after the quarter note is finished. Now, having that set, we see, okay, this automates our volume, it lowers it and the lower portion, and then the volume goes up again and drops again with the next kick. If we listen to this, then you hear that, and put in the headphone, okay. If we now start listening to this, muting out everything but the bass line and the kick, you will hear that turning off the LFO tool will, even if not an extremely huge impact, it will have an impact on how well the kick shines through. Removing it, the kick is now drowning a bit more in the mix than it did before. While now it has a bit more presence. And so LFO tool is a great way to bring out the kick more. On the other hand, it has a few drawbacks, because using LFO tool means that I would have to configure every single bus in a way that I feel fits the kick without being entirely sure. And that also means that I've got a few spots to reconfigure if I'm wrong. For example, I tailored a kick right in the beginning of my production, and now I'm at 80% finished and find, no, this kick doesn't suit me at all, I want another one. The first kick was very short, snappy, it finished right away and had a good amount of impact, but it was quick. So I tailored my different LFO tools in a way that they are down and quickly increase again, so I don't have too much of a hole between the quarter notes where you hear that the bassline is ducked, because that's not what you want. You want space for the kick, but you don't want listeners to hear, oh, the bassline is gone. Now I decide I'd go for another kick, and that has a long bass line, has a bassy tail. And now you fucked up a bit, because at this point your tail of your kick will drown in the rest of your mix. You probably come to that conclusion by yourself, so you start running over your buses and redoing all the settings, just to find out after 1 week that the first kick was better anyway, and you'll have to return to that setting by hand. Okay, so what are the alternatives? Well, the alternative is to really go back to the basic concept that sidechaining was all about from the beginning on. You have a volume controller that is able to duck the volume and give that an input telling it how to duck the volume, because you know when the kick comes. And I'll show you an example of this. We will add a volume controller, as I said, to our bass bus. Or now let's go with the lead bus actually. We'll add that to the lead bus of our track. So clicking here on the right side on the effects section and choosing from more plugins the Fruity Balance plugin, which is a plugin to set the balance between left and right, but also set the volume of the overall channel. And here you see the volume knob that I want to automate. The second ingredient I need is setting up a new bus. This bus will be called Sidechain, because it's my sidechaining bus. And I'll move it all the way up to my kick, just for order, because the kick is the instrument that controls the sidechain. And the first technique to go about this is to link the kick bus right into my sidechain bus. Now I unlink my sidechain bus from the master. So why do I do that? At first, linking the kick bus to the sidechain bus means I have a bus where I can collect all the information about my kick, including compression, including equalizing all my kicks tailored together as they stand in the mix, go into the sidechain. And I cut off the sidechain from my output, because if I don't do that, the kick output goes into the sidechain and out to the master, and the kick itself goes to the master, doubling up the volume of my kick, which I don't want, so I cut that off. Having that done, if we now play the solo kick, you see that the sidechain is having these peaks because it's getting that from the kick bus. We're set to go, kind of. Now, how do we get the information of the loudness from the sidechain bus to our lead bus? Well, there is a plugin for that. It's the Fruity Peak Controller plugin, which you can find here in the list under controllers. If you don't find it there, click on more plugins on the top and just seek for it in the list. Now, let's take the peak controller and put it on the channel. And this thing consists of a few elements again. You have the peak panel on the left side, you have the LFO panel on the right side. The peak channel, the peak part of this plugin is there to control the way that the incoming sound of the channel is taken up by the controller and how it's processed, while the LFO adds, another waveform in a speed and way that you define. So you can kind of mix up input and an LFO, or use just the LFO, use just the peak, whatever. Playing the kick now, you see that you have these little knobs down there. Those are the automated, that is the volume coming in from your kick. You can change the way that it is perceived by this controller by altering these settings. The bass increases the bass line that all this is playing on. It just moves it up. Or you can alter the volume, because that will change how much of an impact the kick has on this scale. Also, you can set the tension, which defines how strongly and quickly does your automation kick in, or does it take some time to build up. Increasing the tension does automatically increase the volume for a bit, because you just bring out the kick's effect far quicker, while drawing out the tension reduces the overall impact of the sound. The next knob to turn is the decay knob. The decay knob defines settings for how long the sound will be there. Having a regular decay or even a high decay cuts off the effect of the kick right when it's finished, while a decay with a low level means that it takes really much time to build away or to deconstruct the sound, and it takes time before the effect is gone. Look at this. I'll decrease the decay and you see that the wave is getting longer and longer until this is nearly a straight line. I don't want that. I kind of feel that the setting is okay, and that's what I want to do now. And what I want to take to my channel. Now I go back to my lead bus where I have everything set up, and reopen my Fruity Balance plugin, and now I want to automate this volume knob here. Right click and choose Link to Controller. In this new window opening up, you can now, let's ignore the top section. You can now choose an internal controller within the software that you want to take information from. The information you want to take is from the Fruity Peak controller, which you find right here, on the sidechain bus, the peak controller peak. LFO would only take the information of the second panel with a waveform that's generated, while peak plus LFO would combine those. Only choosing peak will mean we only use the input we get from the kick for our calculation. Now, in the mapping formula, you decide how the input you get affects the volume knob that you were trying to remote control right there. Choosing input means the volume knob always has the same value as the input coming from the controller. While setting it to inverted, which I'm going to do now, 1 minus input, means that it's turning around exactly the other way, because I want a high kick value to be a low baseline value. Make sure you remove the remove conflicts check mark right down here, because if you use the same controller for remote controlling several buses, keeping that on will dissolve every of those pre-connected buses, so only one bus is at a time connected to this controller. Remove that and you're good to go. Now when we play that, you see that, I should turn that on again. Now you see that the volume knob of our lead bus is kicking out. Every time our kick is coming in, it's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Seems we're good to go with this. And if we now listen to this in comparison, we go into the main section and we turn off the effect. I should turn off LFO too, ideally. Okay. If we now turn off a Fruity Balance plugin, you'll see that the kick starts to get lost in the way the lead bus sounds. So the lead bus takes over the all space that would be left for the kick. Now, still this thing has kind of a downside to it, a similar downside as the LFO tool version would bring with it, and what I tell you now is applicable to both tools or ways to do it. What if we want to reduce the strength of our impact, of the strength of the sidechain? Because in the introduction I don't want my kick to boost through and remove kind of half of my leads. But how do I go about this? Well, there's only one way, and that is automation. You could automate the power of the Fruity Balance plugin by creating an automation clip of it. And now you find that automation clip here in the mix. And it should be, yeah, balance mix level. Let's include a new line here. So, and with this automation, you can now set how strong the sidechain kicks in. If we so set that down right here and then bring it back up on this spot right here, you will definitely hear a noticeable difference of that turning on. At least I hope so. And there you hear that the kick is now coming through more, so we automated it and everything is fine. That is okay. But if you have many different sidechains going on, you get a problem. But why would you have many sidechains going on? Well, that is because every sidechain has a different effect on your track. Let's take the bass. On your bass line, you often want a harsh way of cutting it. You want that the sidechain really cuts in or cuts out a piece of it, lets the kick play, and then lets everything come back in again. However, with the melody, you don't want your melody to duck in a way that the listener can hear. You want the melody to be slightly ducked to give a bit more room to the kick. You don't want the kick to break it. So you might use a second sidechain. And you can do that by just adding a second controller to our sidechain bus. And now let's rename that so we find it again. And rename that to sidechain soft, because I want a soft sidechain on that. And on this one, I just keep the volume. Can I mute that out, please? Now on this one, I want at least some input. Why am I not getting input on my sidechain? Ah, okay, I reduced the balance. Never mind. Sorry. Now, why am I not getting input on my sidechain? Give me a second, I'll try to sort that out. Okay, so we're back at it. It seems that my Fruity P control plugin number 1 that we set up initially kind of hang itself up. Because that mute thing down here was deactivated, but as soon as I clicked on it, activated and deactivated it again, the channel was back on it. Now let's continue. So, taking the sidechain soft, you see that now right here we have a lower impact on how much the kick comes in comparison to the bigger Fruity P control that takes up as much of the energy as it can get. If we now put that on our lead bus and use this one to control our lead bus while we use the harsher one to control our bass bus, we have a bit more even representation of how we want our sounds to be. So let's choose another internal controller. That would be the sidechain soft peak accept. And now you see that we have a lower impact on our volume automation. While on the bass, which I haven't set up yet, I want to have a bigger impact and really reduce as much of the volume as I can as I help. As I can. Let's add the plugin. Now, link to controller. Now I want to link it to the old controller, which is P controller peak. Then 1 minus input. Accept it. And on the bass bus now, you see that when I turn on my kick again, that the impact of our sidechain is very heavy and that it's really turning off much of the bass. Working out perfectly, isn't it? Yeah. But we have another problem. As I said, if we want to automate all this, we now have a lot of effort to really do so. We would have to create an automation clip for every single of the sidechains. That is one thing, it would be a lot of effort, but yeah, I guess it would work out. But what is if I want to have a sidechain effect without having my kick playing? Maybe I don't want to have the sidechain because my kick isn't coming through, but I want to have the sidechain because I have a pad playing, a very long and broad sound, and I want to give some kind of rhythm to it without using rhythmic elements. Sidechain effects are perfect, ducking the volume, just in the beat. That's tough, because right now the sidechain is only coming in when we're playing this. LFO tool could do this for us. But if we use LFO tool, we don't really have that fitting sound, and in addition, it's a third-party plugin, which costs money, and you might not want to go for that. Well, the alternative is to copy over the overall kick section, everything from it, and then use it in another pattern. So you want to use it in its kind of own pattern. That would allow you to turn on and off the bass line by just adding or removing the pattern from your plays. We can do that by just, let's take only one of my kicks for this time because the video is long enough. I'll copy my kick, then I'll make it unique, rename it to Sidechain, insert an own track for it, put it there, then I want to link the instrument. Or no, not link. I want to clone the instrument which is playing. This is this one, clone. Also rename it to sidechain, because this one is only for sidechaining now. Then link it to the sidechain channel channel 1. I could also do that by going into the mixer, clicking on the channel and just pressing Ctrl L. And now that we're linked to the channel, I can delink my kick bus because I don't want to have it anymore there anymore. And now we're already set to go. We can now mark this thing through all the way. And I should probably... What did I do wrong this time? Wait a second. What did I break this time? It's not going too well for me, is it? I'm even getting output. That's not the way it should be. Yeah, it's on 3. I didn't copy down the kick. Sorry. I need to copy down the kick to the sidechain, of course, to make it play. Now everything should be working. And yeah, you now hear how my lead is ducking below the kick. And now you even hear that the lead is ducking below the kick even if the kick's not playing, because having the sidechain activated and now going at the lead bus and activating everything, you hear that it's always going down a bit. However, deactivating the sidechain, it's playing in full strength. So we can now easily control the sidechain by removing it or adding to the playlist. That's a very elegant way of solving this problem, and it also means that you can decide on how strong you want your sidechain to be. Do you want the strong sidechain to play but the soft not, or the other way around? Maybe you want a soft sidechain in the breakdown, but you want to use the stronger one for the main section. You could just add 2 balance plugins and link them to separate controllers and activate them by adding the pattern. That's another way of doing it. And just as an LFO tool, you're now able to sidechain tracks without having the original sound playing all of the time. So that's a pretty elegant solution to it. Now you see, every of the methods that I showed you today have its up and down sides. The first method with LFO tool is nice. It just is easy. You can easily understand the plugin, you can just place it in, have it running, fit the curve to your needs, and have the sound right as you want it. While using the second technique, you have the possibility to have exactly the sound you get from your kick, including the compression effects and everything from the bus, right away in your sidechain and right away in your ducking melody. Or variant 3, you have the possibility to even use the sidechain on elements without the kick playing, but you can use it without having the need to buy third-party plugins. While the downsides of all of those are, yeah, you have to buy LFO tool. LFO tool doesn't perfectly fit your sound. The second method does perfectly fit your sound, but you're absolutely unable, going only with that, to automate without using the kick in the background. While with the last option, you have the possibility of all of that, but you have to set up more than if you use the LFO tool in the first place. So you kind of have to decide which technique fits your working process the best for a single track. It doesn't mean that you have to go the same way with every track. You can just modify it to your needs, just as I did with this track, where I was sure that I had like path that I wanted to automate with LFO tool because I wanted to have my sidechain playing even though my kick wasn't there. While in the track I'm working on right now, I don't rely on that at all, and I just need my kick to come through, so I can use the second option I showed because it's easy to set up and the sound fits perfectly. So that's ways you can go about this. Now, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day or evening, and you might, if you want to check out my other videos, listen to the music I produce, and maybe follow the channel if you want to see other videos, tutorials like this, or just be able to get notified when new music gets released on my end. So, I wish you a great evening, and I'll see you in the next one.